Welcome to Extraordinary Women, a podcast where everyday women talk about the extraordinary things they've achieved in their lives. With me, your host, Denise O'Brien. Welcome to Extraordinary Women. I have an absolutely fascinating and fantastic woman here with me on this episode from my hometown of Shannon, County Clare. Joanne Begley, you are very welcome.
Thank you for having me, Denise. Very honoured to be on your podcast.
Oh, I'm delighted, absolutely delighted. And thank you for being a supporter of the podcast as well. So I really do appreciate that.
Not at all. It's great to listen to all the women's different stories. It's brilliant. Well done.
Getting to hear your story today. So I'm just going to introduce you to the listeners. People will listen to this, of course, who know you, but I'm hoping that there'll be a wide range and reach of people who will listen to this and who'll be very curious to know, okay, who is this lady? So Joanne Begley is a businesswoman and entrepreneur. She's an author. She's an end-of-life practitioner, care practitioner. She's very much involved in the community here in Shannon, which most people who know Joanne will know that because I see her active in so many committees and I don't actually know how she gets the time to do this, but we will find out. And she is a proud mom of two, Aoibhinn and Owen. And I know she has a fantastic supportive husband as well in the background somewhere as well. So
I do indeed. He's great. Yeah.
Great. So, so Joanne, I suppose that we were talking a little bit before we started just about the purpose of this podcast, and it really has been for me about helping so-called ordinary women to maybe take a step towards being extraordinary and by listening to stories like yours. So I'd love to just maybe go back to your beginnings. You were from Shannon, you grew up here. Tell us a little bit about what it was like for you growing up and going to school and things.
Yeah, I am from Shannon originally, all my life, a pure Shannonite, out and out. My mum is from Belfast, so she would have come down to Shannon in the Troubles, and my dad is from Ennis. I have two brothers and a sister, and we would have lived in Finian Park in Shannon. I would have went to school in St. Aidan's, where Ger Nan was the principal at the time, and then I would have went on then to St. Patrick's Comprehensive School there. After then, I didn't go to college. Then I started working where every good story starts, in Supermax, giving out snack boxes. I learned an awful lot working in that role with Pat McDonough. Was outstanding man. I was training coordinator there as well, and from there I kind of moved into a nursing home in Carrigoran, working as an auxiliary nurse there, and I loved the role, but I was quite sensitive. I got very attached to patients, and I was very upset if I took a long weekend off and came back and somebody had passed away. So I left there and went into retail. I was a retail manager for the brand Bestseller. They have like Jack and Jones, Vera Moda, and I was manager for Name It in Shannon, a kiddies clothes shop. So there I would have kind of been a buyer, kind of merchandiser. You would have travelled to Denmark to buy collections, and that was a great role. And then I decided that I would go back and train in college. I always had a passion for disabilities and end of life kind of talk. So I went back to the Open Training College as a mature student, and I did a 4-year honours degree in social care in disability.
Wow. Okay. Right. Well, that's, some kind of work history and work experience. And I don't know about you, but what I love, especially about we're a similar age, and a lot of women our age or people our age would have had, if going back to the job in Supermax, like we all probably, and I actually wrote a blog about this recently about the value of working in a customer service role at some point in your career.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Pat McDonough there. He's a legend here in Ireland. So tell me, just what do you think? Because you said you learned an awful lot from that. It's something I'm very passionate about, like customer service and having a service mindset. What did you think were the big lessons that you took from your early work career there in Supermax?
Just the importance of looking after your customers. Pat was a great believer in having a good team behind you as well, and knowledgeable people at the front desk or behind the grill or even on the floor. He was really good at creating good teamwork.
Yeah.
And he was he was good to get stuck in as well and come down and roll up the sleeves and get in behind and flip a burger if he had to. You know, he was himself and Una. They were just lovely people. They looked after staff. They looked after us for kind of Christmas night outs, and they were just really good to work for. I enjoyed going in there. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. I was I worked in the Oakwood, and like that, the owner at the time, like Ted Germain, would have been there, like on the floor with me.
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, I was half terrified, obviously, not that I was just so young, you know, but he was a brilliant person to learn from as well, because you're learning from the business owner about how to mind.
Yeah, and it's you're from the top down, yeah. And when I forgot to say earlier, I would have been a bar manager in the old lodge for years as well before I had Owen. No, Avian, sorry. And at the time it was run by the Lyon family, so Angela Lyon that would have had the Auburn, and it was run at the time by Howard. I don't know if you remember Howard, that lost his life there cycling by the Clare Inn.
Oh yes,
Howard Flannery and his wife Bornia. But I learned so much from them about the operational side of things that you wouldn't see if you come up to the bar, about how much stock to order in, about budgets for staffing, so we can only allocate that much. And it's very interesting learning from people in the field.
I know, and I think at that age, I think this is just for me like a message to anyone younger who might be listening to this. Like, there's such value to be had in jobs that seem a bit menial, you know, because you are actually learning what we call transferable skills. You know, as you said, how do you organize stock? Like, how much stock do we need? How do I talk to customers and do this? And so phenomenal. No, I just wanted to touch on that. And obviously, you know, your connection to Shannon is very deep rooted then. And you know, we'll talk a bit about the community work in a while, and I'm very passionate about Shannon as well. So I love to see the work that you're doing there. Really, you know, take my hat off to you, like, because I know it's not easy. But one of the things I wanted to go back to as well was like, so you took us on your career trajectory, and at some point then you kind of said, right, I'm going to go back to college and I'm going to retrain. And you said you've always kind of had a affinity for supporting, you know, people with disabilities and the end of life kind of piece. I'm just curious as to what do you think drew you towards that?
I've just always been kind of surrounded, like, there isn't a family that hasn't been touched by a disability or a death. So I've always been interested in kind of how we leave this world. I actually did my thesis in college on end of life. It was called Quality of Life Trumps Quality of Death. For people with disabilities, a lot don't get a choice in their wishes for end of life. Some of them are wards of court, so a lot of decisions are made for them. So I wanted to explore that, so I did my thesis on that. And after that then, I suppose, going back to my interest in disabilities, when I worked in Carrigoran, I came across a man from 6 Mile Bridge called Frank Keogh. He was a mechanic in John Brown's in Cratloe. And he got a thing called locked-in syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. It's like a double stroke. So he went to bed with a headache, woke up, and he could only communicate with his eyes. So he went to the rehab place in Dunleary for years, and then came to Carrigoran. And I ended up becoming very close to him and just understanding him. He talked with the board that it was red, yellow, green, white, blue, and then red was A. So you'd start with the vowels A, E, I, O, U. So you could go in and he'd blink for red and you'd go through A, B, C, D, and he could just be asking you a question or, so I really kind of connected with him. We had a good laugh. I'll never forget my first day in Carrigoran. I showed up a little bit hungover. I was 18, very naive. And he spelt up, go get a glass of milk. And it was just, and it's in the front of my book about him telling me to drink milk while I was hungover, but he was just good fun. I created a really good kind of bond with his wife and daughter. And we always kind of chatted about, you know, I want to leave a letter for Caroline and Mary. Will you help me with it? And I had always said, yes, I would. When I ended up leaving Carrigoran, Frank was moved to Rathfrieda Cheshire Homes in Newcastle West, which was more independent living, suited his needs and his age, I suppose. And then he suddenly got pneumonia and passed away. And I always kind of thought, God, I never got to do that for Frank. And it kind of just, it was a little bit of an itch I couldn't scratch, you know. So that was fine. And then I suppose then in 2018, I wasn't feeling very well, and I was diagnosed with an incurable brain condition called Chiari malformation. So for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's like a herniation of the brain. So your brain is too small for your skull. or your skull is too small for your brain and it's protruding into your spine. So it's basically falling out. So I was having headaches. I started a Pilates class. I couldn't understand why I couldn't do any of the balancing. I was getting phenomenal blackouts, loading a dishwasher. And anytime I laughed, I got a real bad headache, because it's called the laughing disease. When you laugh really hard, your brain shakes.
What's the name?
So,
can you repeat the name?
It's called Chiari malformation. So CHIARI malformation. So it can be an acquired injury you get maybe from all the roller coasters that I was on with my children for years, or you can get it maybe through an accident, or it could just be like mine, an incidental find. I started getting headaches in my 30s. It doesn't kind of manifest till your 30s.
Okay.
So I went to my GP, Ronan Flynn. I just said, I'm just not feeling well. I feel like my eyes are going to pop out of my head. I went for an MRI in the August, and I had a fantastic neurologist in Barrington's called Peter Bors. And he just said, you have Chiari malformation and you have to get a bit of brain surgery. So there's no cure for it. So it's a progressive disease. It's very debilitating some days. But I don't let it stop me, because I always say, if my gin and tonic hand works, I'm fine. I have to have some outlet in life. Life is for living, and that's why I'm so passionate about everything end of life. I've had 2 brain surgeries in Cork. The first one I had in September 2018, and I got a thing after it called a pseudomeningocele. So it's like a big leak at the back of your brain, which causes more problems as well. So they tried to wait for 10 months to see would that disappear. That didn't disappear. And I went in for another surgery of the October of the following year, and they left it for another little while to see. And I got a recurring leak. And when you get a pseudomeningocele, your brain thinks that you have a tumor. So it kind of fights your body all the time to protect you. So in the end, I got second opinions in Dublin. There was nothing really anybody in Ireland could do. And I came across the Chiari Malformation Foundation in Barcelona, that they believe going in through your brain. So what they do in Ireland is they go through the back of your skull. It's called a decompression, and they let the pressure out. They remove a big part of your skull. And Barcelona didn't believe in that concept, because they think that's very invasive. They go in through your coccyx bone and up through your spine. So they believe your brain is attached to your spinal cord, and they go in through your spinal cord, cut it, and it bounces back up like a bungee. Okay. So I decided I would take a risk and go there. And I have VHI, thank God. And the surgery was over 20,000, and I thought VHI would pay for it. VHI would pay for it if the neurosurgeon signed it off, but the neurosurgeon here in Ireland wouldn't, because it's a pioneering surgery, and he wouldn't sign it off. So my godchild in Shannon, Claire Louise Lagan, ended up setting up a GoFundMe, and I think in 24 hours I raised 24,000. So that's why I give a lot back to my community, because I just feel passionate. They were there to dig me out of a hole. So that's why I give a lot of my time. I kind of said when we raised the money, it was like, well, I will give back till as long as I'm here on this earth. So that's kind of where I'm coming. So like I have an interest in end of life. I won't be here forever. I have to have my ducks in a row for my 2 kids, and know my wishes and my diary that I have at the moment. And I'm not sad about it. I'm not, it is what it is. I'm very proactive. We talk about death and dying around our table all the time. Like I when I give talks on this, I always say, like, talking about death and dying is not going to, like talking about sex is not going to make you get pregnant tomorrow. Talking about death and dying will not bring inevitable death closer to anybody in this life. So it's really important to kind of change the narrative around it.
I think that's
and you know, a song might come on there, Clearwater Revival, and I'll say, oh, there's your funeral song, Mum. It's just, it's a natural conversation, but it takes off a lot of pressure off them to know my wishes when my time comes. So cutting a long story short, I had the surgery in Barcelona. It took me a long, long time to recover. I got a lot of infections when I come home to Ireland, and I ended up caring for a friend of mine's mum was diagnosed with motor neuron, and I was bored off my tree. If anyone listens to this knows me, knows I hate being idle. I do not like sitting down for more than 10 minutes. I actually met a friend the other day, Carol, and I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm actually just bored. I've nothing to do. I've no assignments to correct. I've no minutes to write up. I don't know what I was doing, but I don't like being idle. And
Yeah.
So I met with Carmel, and I just said, look, I'm bored. I'll sit with you 2 nights a week. And we ended up just becoming kind of really close. And she had expressed her wishes to, I don't know if motor neuron, you lose your voice when you have motor neuron.
Okay.
And she wanted to leave something for her children. So I looked on the market, Denise, and I could not find anything. There were a lot of books out there that you could give now, but she wanted to leave something for after. So anytime I'd go on duty with her, she'd be giving me little jobs can you assign that to go to somebody, or can you do this job for that person? And it was always kind of, is this for now or for after, Carmel? So that's why I came up with the idea for after I've gone. So when we were researching all these books, we were looking at books, going, no, that question doesn't suit. No, I don't like the look of that book. So I said, look, I'll just buy 4 A5 diaries and we'll design the questions. So that's what we used to do. When I used to come in, she used to have a thing. I don't remember if you saw what Charlie Bird had, the eye gaze.
I saw him using it on media.
Late. So I'd go in, and if I was cooking her a bit of dinner, I'd say, work away on that question now. And, there'd be tears, there'd be laughter, but I learned so much about her. So I would have wrote the books, the answers for her in the books, and gave them to her children. So after she passed in the July, I just thought, June, I'm going to develop this. I'm going to, there's nothing like it. I saw the massive need for it, especially after doing the thesis as well. And I just kind of got involved then with the New Frontiers program in TUS, the old LIT, and that's kind of run by Enterprise Ireland. So I would have went in there, and you do a couple of months program on your why. Why are you doing this? What social problem are you solving? And designed it. And they give you food for thought, because as somebody not having a business before you, there's so much to think about.
Yes.
So I did the New Frontiers program for a couple of weeks, and then I was asked by Social Entrepreneurs Ireland to go on their Ideas Academy. So that was up in Dublin, and that was for a couple of months, and met some really fantastic people. I think Tristan from FASD.
I do. Yeah.
He was on the same program as I was. Still a really good friend. I love Tristan. And you just meet people, bounce off ideas. It's great people just trying to solve social problems in society. So I did that for a couple of months, and then I did the HSE Sparks program, where you kind of go on and try and get the HSE to fund it. But because I'm a business and it wasn't freely available to patients, I couldn't get funding for it, which was okay. And then I did the Seeds program then with the Irish Hospice Foundation as well then. And I was lucky then enough to be picked for the Arnott's. They do an initiative every year called Pitch.
Yeah, I heard.
So I got picked for the Pitch 23 initiative. So you get invited up to Dublin, to Arnott's, and it's in the townhouse, the top of Arnott's, and it's like Dragon's Den. You go in, there's 4 phenomenal women sitting there in purple velvet chairs, and they're just like, it's like Dragon's Den. You introduce yourself, who you are. So I did that in the July, and then in September of last year, I decided, right, I'm going to launch for After I've Gone, and I did, and I launched it in Hope Cafe here in Shannon, and I didn't really want to launch it. I had a business mentor. I was like, no, just put it on Amazon, say nothing to no one. I can be quite shy sometimes. I'm passionate about doing stuff in my community, but when it's something to do with a heartfelt project, it's hard to kind of
vulnerable, like, isn't it? You're kind of
course, So I launched it in Hope Cafe. I thought maybe 10 or 12 people came, and there was over 200 there. It was a phenomenal night. I keep saying to everybody, it felt like I was at my own funeral, because there was so much love in the room. It was Madge O'Callaghan interviewed me. I had music from Katie Teasby and Blaze Phelan and my dad. And it was just a beautiful night. It was lovely. And since then, Denise, it's just been a massive roller coaster of busy. And that's how kind of my business came.
That's a phenomenal story. So like, basically you've been inspired by a few different things, but, primarily about how we approach, death and how we deal with the dying. And have you ever read the book on death and dying by, I think it's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross? I don't know if
yes
that's that.
I would have referenced her a lot now in the thesis,
because I do.
She's brilliant.
Talk about that in terms of the change, her theory around, how the stages of grief is how we deal with change in life as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And since I published the book, I kind of thought, you know what, I want to try and become more knowledgeable in the field as well. If you're selling products on a certain topic, you'd kind of want to support it with research and stuff. So I'm training to be a death doula. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. So
I have heard. Don't tell our listeners that is.
In America, they have like a birth doula. I know this, it's kind of coming into Ireland now where, you'd get a supportive man or woman to support you through birth and stuff. And so the death doula would be the same. It's about how you leave this world and, kind of getting your affairs in order. I suppose the Irish Hospice Foundation have a fantastic document called The Think Ahead. It's a pack where you'd buy it, and it's kind of it's like the business side of dying, where you'd have passwords and stuff people don't think to leave behind, and and it kind of it stops the stress of the families. Like a lot of conversations around death and dying happen at time of crises. If somebody's had a stroke, it's I don't know what they wanted, and like a lot of healing conversations can be had around death and dying. So I try.
Yeah, fantastic, because I know even for us, like we lost my mum over 20 years ago, and from cancer, a brain cancer. And she'd been sick for a long time, and periods of remission and different things. But there's things I wish I was able to talk to her about. We did have lots of times before she passed. But looking back, like I'm thinking, I wonder what was really going through her mind. I mean, she seemed to be had come to terms with it towards the end. But I think for people listening, there's something not to be afraid of that, I think.
Yeah, the feedback I'm getting from testimonials and stuff is just so the idea of the book is that the person who, and I'm not targeting it or marketing it to people, palliative care, end of life. It's for everybody. You should be writing down your wishes or memories. Core memories are really important. The book is divided into two. So the first half is about the person, like, did you get into trouble as a child? How much was bread and milk? Like simple questions. Yes. What did you do for fun? Did you have a favorite teacher? Who was your first boyfriend, girlfriend? And then the second half of the book then it's developed as like here's where you should go if you're missing me. Like, this is my bucket list. This is my favorite restaurant to eat. Here's something you didn't know about me. Can you please finish this off for me? So it's keeping that forever bond between the person that's passed and the person here. But it also has a dual purpose in that it helps the person leaving. Like my tagline is for all the things left unsaid. So you would kind of, and like from speaking with families that I've worked with, this, oh my God, that's why my dad never brought us there, or that's why this happened. So, it's Pandora's box closed for a few people.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's phenomenal. So in terms of yourself then, right? So this brought you into the world of entrepreneurship. You've been on a lot of mentoring programs, and I know myself how rewarding they can be, but how challenging they can be when you're trying to bring an idea to fruition. And you get all the right questions, but it can be very challenging. So, one thing I always ask women on this, I know there's going to be somebody listening who is obviously in awe of what you're doing. And for me, I think women need to see more women, ordinary, quote unquote, who are doing extraordinary things. So what advice, I mean, you're obviously very driven, right? And very self-motivated. But what advice would you give to somebody who might be listening, who has like an inkling of a creative spark about something in the back of their mind, and they're kind of like, oh God, no, that's just silly now. I'm just going to forget about that. Like, have you any advice for other women who might want to do something extraordinary?
Take the risk. Life is about risk. Risk is not fatal. It's important to take that risk. If you don't balance it out with the risk of doing nothing, if you have this idea, just go with it. It's important. Like I keep going back to my why, and my why is like I got into doing for after I've gone to make a difference, not make a million. And that is my sole purpose, that like if I sell one book today to a hospice in Australia, my job is done today, because that's why I wanted it. I wanted people to get the benefit out of it. I'm not going to be driving a Land Rover, and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? And not everybody is your customer. So I think it's important to, if you have the idea, you just have to drive on with it. Find the strength from within somewhere and just drive it on.
Brilliant.
But and reach out, like the importance of networking, just reach out and just figure out, right, who can I link in with that one? I would be a bit cheeky, I suppose, in terms of approaching people, but like, how can I get this done? And like, I would have sent my book to Charlie Bird and Vicky Phelan when I first was doing the first draft, because you need to do feasibility studies, you need to change questions. And I sent it to Charlie and Vicky, and one of them came back and said, I had a question in it, what is your death row meal? And as two people that were at end of life came back and said, we don't like that question. Can you put in, change it? Like, what would be your last meal? Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of changing words like that.
Yeah.
So Charlie would have sent me a lovely letter back at the time. And then I was lucky enough to be invited to meet him last December. I don't know if you remember, Kevin Sinfield was doing the 7 of 7 marathons up in Dublin.
Oh, yes.
So he was running for Rob Burrows. Yeah. So Moshe Noran invited me up to meet Charlie and Claire and Teddy. And it was lovely. It was lovely just to say, I'm the one that sent you the book. And and so now I'm kind of aligned with Moshe Noran Ireland and the Irish Hospice Foundation, the Mary Keating Foundation. So it's networking is so important.
I saw that you had an award earlier on this year as well in the Network Ireland Limerick you were in the Networker of the Year category, wasn't that right?
Along with yourself, yes. And I cannot wait to see you win it in September. Network. It's important to be involved with Network Ireland, and I'm also in the Club Women's Network. Do you know, it's great to bounce. It's a very lonely place sometimes being employed. Like my mum would have been self-employed. She just retired there. She had a play school for 35 years in Shannon. My dad is self-employed musician. So they've always been our biggest cheerleader. So it's really like it's a lonely place being self-employed, because you're like, why am I doing this? Oh God, I didn't get a sale in today. And I wouldn't be one of these fake it till you make it people. I am quite honest going, I didn't get a sale today, but that's okay. Do you know, it's not for everybody, and I have to understand that. I'll tell you a funny story. I did a holistic fair one time thinking, okay, this might be an avenue I could explore, and a man came up and asked, what are these books about? So I was giving him the whole spiel, and he just said to me, oh my God, the only thing I'm leaving them is my overdraft, and he walked away. I just thought, okay, you have to understand that not everybody is your customer, and that's really important. Not for everybody, and that's okay. But
look, like, I think if people really are honest with themselves, and that's not going to happen, obviously, but in this lifetime, that everybody gets to a state of awareness where they realize actually everybody could do with this book, and this is actually a really good idea for everybody. Like, as you said, everybody's encountered death. We're all going to face it. But I think it's a beautiful thing rather than something to be afraid of, so
100%. I've been invited down to one of the women's sheds down in, I think it's Tralee or Killarney in September, to give a talk on it, because I qualified recently with the Irish Hospice Foundation to become a Think Ahead champion. So that would be just where you'd go and help people that are struggling to fill out their forms or have courageous conversations. I did a talk recently in Toos for Jennifer Stritch for her in grief and loss students, and one of the students just said, like, I really want to have this conversation with my parents. How do I just sit down and have a cup of tea? And I said, but what if you don't? Do you know what I mean? The fallout of that would be worse, because you'd be go, I should have asked Mum for her brown bread recipe, or so I think just once you break, kind of just change the narrative. That's what I'm trying to do daily.
Well, you're kind of trying to change the mindset around embracing end of life discussions, whether or not we don't know, do we? We don't know when that's going to be. No. And in terms of your own health, then you're obviously in a good place right now. Fair to say? Or?
Today is good. Other days you might see me and I might look like I've come through a bush backwards, but I just try and get up and get on with it.
I've never seen
some
you
days are
like
hard.
Never. And then all the times I've met you.
Oh, the power of makeup. But yes, I do find the heavy weather now gives me headaches. I can tell you if there's a storm coming 4 days before it comes, because my head will come out through my ears.
Okay.
And yeah, look, it is what it is. There is no more help. I pray every day somebody will invent a cure to keep my brain up and not fall out. So,
you're taking it a day at a time.
When in the grander scheme of things, there are a lot more people worse off than me, and I'm lucky to be breathing every morning, have 2 fabulous children and a great husband and a lovely family and fantastic friends. So life is for living, in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, you're an inspiration to many. And just on the community work, finally, I want to talk a little bit about that with you, because it's something, we can raise awareness of here as well for Shannon. What kind of community committees are you involved in, and is there anything you'd like to particularly talk about?
I'm involved in a few. I'm on the board of the Family Resource Centre. I'm the secretary of Shannon Community Partnership, which is the new advocacy and development body for Shannon. So we formed in November of last year, and that's going strength to strength. It's just trying to get different strands of the community together to get what we need for Shannon. Shannon can become the forgotten town sometimes. So we're fighting for services, increased services, better facilities. We meet every quarterly with groups from Shannon. We have a Shannon Community Network where we just try and link people, get all the sports groups together to try and get funding for them. So I really enjoyed that. And then I'm secretary of the Shannon of Manala Kayla, the Shannon Women's Shed, which is absolute brilliant crack. From going to the Shannon to the Women's Shed forums, I'm the youngest person at it, but I don't believe in it just being for retired people. It's for all walks of women that want to just get out of the house, get a safe space. So we're actually just looking for a premises. We've been working out at the Family Resource Centre for the last year, and we're booked out solid in weeks in advance. But we use the women in our community that have a skill. So if somebody does mindfulness, we'll use her. If somebody does macrame, we'll use them. If somebody does sewing, we'll use them, and then they get a ricochet effect then of business after it. So it's just about empowering women, scaffolding women in our community. So I love that. And what other? Oh, I'm on the Shannon Athletics Club for funding. I like getting everybody a bit of money. I like filling out forms. I'm a bit weird like that. So I like getting people what they're owed. If you can get a funding stream to improve your area too. And I also am part. Yeah, I'm also part of the Ukrainian core group as well. Then for as volunteer on the community integration team. I think that's it. Anymore, I think I'll be divorced. That's it. But as I said before, I like to give back, Denise. It's not about looking for pats on the back, or it's just about just giving back to my community, because Shannon is a phenomenal place. When somebody's in trouble and they need help, they just band together and they're powerful. So that's why I do what I do. Yeah,
it's a special place. So I suppose finally then for you, like your vision for yourself for the rest of this year into next year, have you anything else up your sleeve? Are you happy to kind of progress with the book sales?
I actually, when I brought the book out, I was only ever going to do a parent edition, but I had to be mindful when you're doing your market research that not everyone is a parent. So I developed a sibling edition, a friend edition, and a partner edition. And yesterday I got an email going, well, I'd really like a grandfather edition. So look, when I find the time, I'll try and develop that. But no, there is big plans for after I've gone. I want to kind of develop an audio section on the website where somebody could leave a message that could be posted to somebody at a loved one, like their birthday or a grad or a wedding or something. So, and as with technology, that takes long time and stuff. So yeah, look, for after I've gone, it's a slow burn. It has to kind of gather momentum and kind of just change beliefs. But like I ship globally, and I'm delighted that it's in Australia and England and America and Portugal. So it's everywhere.
And so on that note, finally, so if someone like me listening now to this podcast is going, maybe I should have a look at that book, and is brave enough to kind of, even if you don't know anyone who's, at their end of life, Like what edition? I know there's a few different versions, and like where's the starting point for, say, someone like me who, I'm just like, right, I want to read this, I want to buy this for myself.
So it's a journal.
Yeah.
It's a 200-page journal. So there's prompts in it. So like, as I said, the first section would be all about you. You'd fill it in. But I also collaborate. When I was doing it, I wanted to involve people in the community in it as well. So I would have worked with a lot of local artists that put a piece of art in it, just so it's not all writing, that there's a nice quote in there from Donna. I don't know if you heard of Donna Ashworth. She's a famous poet
in
in
her books
the UK.
here beside me in my bookshelf. Yeah, I love her.
As I said before, I'm a bit cheeky. I did reach out and say, look, I have this idea. There's nothing like it on the market in the world. Could I have a few of your pieces? And she was like, absolutely. Wow. I love what you're doing. Oh my God. But there's a few of Donna's pieces in it. Christy Hennessy was to put it, well, his daughter Hermione was putting a song in it. Like, people were just so good to give their stuff. Yeah. There's Orla Carr, artist from Kilrush, has a few pieces. Nell Stritch, Nell from Network Ireland, and
yes, I do.
She has a few pieces in it. So I worked with a lot of people because I wanted it to be a kind of a collaborative thing, that it wasn't just a journal. You would read and read and read, but then you could pick it up and read a nice little poem in it if you were having a bad day because your loved one was passed. So, so you'd buy, if you are a parent, you'd buy the parent edition. If you wanted to leave one to your sibling, your friend, your partner, but they all have different questions. You're not going to ask your sibling the same question you'd ask your parents. There's a few funny ones in them. So
there's the parents one. There's one for parents. Yeah. There's one for then parents of children, I presume. Is there?
Yeah. Yeah. And I am working, like, from when I started this, I did say I wanted my 5th edition would be a child to parent edition, because sadly children lose their lives, but it's very case sensitive, and I'm working with lots of different multidisciplinary teams on that. So I want to have that right, because it needs to be age appropriate and stuff. So that's in the works. That's the 5th edition. But you'd buy it per the relationship you want to leave it. And at the start of the book, it tells you, like, who you would nominate to hand it out for after I've gone. So like, it leaves them a legacy even after you've gone, and you can, phenomenal. Because even when you start a business, you have to, like, meet people and say, what am I going to price it? Oh God, you look at journals online. Well, that's too dear, and I don't want to rob people. And so I met with a guy called the Price Mentor, and he had just recently lost his mom. He's the Price Mentor, so he tells you how to value your time and everything. And he just said, he said, you don't know what I would give for my mum's brown bread recipe. So he said, it's priceless. It really is.
It really is.
It is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. And I know for anyone that's in Shannon, I can see that it's stocked in Easton and Shannon down the road.
Stocked in Easton and Shannon, and it's in O'Mahony's, and it's in Angel Times. I just got it into Nanonagle in Cork. Yeah,
so you can buy it online. Online
or on the website. Yeah, www.forafterivegone.com. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay, well, Joanne Begley, you are an extraordinary woman. Thank you so much for being on my podcast, and it was absolutely fantastic to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
You're very welcome. You've been listening to Extraordinary Women with Denise O'Brien and guests. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to get in touch, please contact me directly at denise@o'brienlearningsolutions.ie, or check out my website www.o'brienlearningsolutions.ie, where you'll find more free resources and interesting articles. Thank you for listening. Please feel free to spread the word and get in touch if you are an extraordinary woman who would like to share her story.